Another golf cart video? Yes, another golf cart video. This one is about putting lights on our 2015 Precedent. All right, like I said in the video, we're going to put a light kit on our 2015 Club Car Precedent. This is the Instamatic street legal kit. So there's a lot here. It's complex, but it doesn't appear to be too complicated. So this is everything that comes in the kit. So to start with, we have the front bumper replacement, which includes the light and turn signals on either side. The two rear signals, which are used for stop lights, turn signals, and regular running lights. The instructions, and then it also comes with switch hardware that goes on the steering column. So this has hazard lights, it has turn signals, has a horn. So this is the main harness that goes in front of the driver. So this covers the front lights, the on-off switch, connection to the main harness. Then the main harness has connection to the power supply, and we'll get to that. We're going to use the fuse block I installed on a previous video, as well as connections for the brake switch. Speaking of the brake switch, there is a spring-loaded brake switch, as well as a steering column cover. So what this does is it covers the wires that go from the switch or the lever hardware down to the dash, cleans it up a little bit. And then there's two horns. So this system, or this light setup, you can wire it directly to 12 volts, which is what we're going to be doing today, or you can wire it directly to 36 volts or directly to 48 volts. The only difference is when you're doing 36 or 48 volts, you have to use this other horn. We're not going to be using that today because everything we're doing will be 12 volts. Like I said, we're going to be wiring it into the fuse block that I already installed. So this fuse that's here, we won't need it. We're going to replace this fuse insert with an eyelet that goes onto my fuse block. Let me reposition the camera, we'll get started. First step is disassembly. We will take the dash apart. That is a T30 and a T15. With that out, next we will do the power port. All right, this is done with two T30s. With those out, it gives you enough room to remove this lower trim panel. So this does lift up. However, the lower trim panel is held in by some T40s underneath the floor mat. So what you have to do next is remove the 4 screws that hold the floor mat in. Now, if you had the original power system in it with the lead acid battery, the next step would be to remove a trim ring that goes around here in order to free this lower trim piece. Since I've done a lithium conversion, my lithium plug is actually screwed right into there. So I don't have to do that step. But what I do have to do is move this loose out from underneath there and bring it out of the way. The reason you move this out of the way is you're going to be running wires up underneath, plus we need access to where the brake switch is. To get access to the brake switch, you have to remove this panel. Now mine has just a push pin or a fir tree fastener that goes in there. I don't have the tool to pull it up, but the trick is if you put your finger in here and pull, there you go, it pulls right up. Over here is where the brake lever is that allows us then to connect our brake switch. Next is the main harness going to the front. So if you look, you can see this is the front of the main harness. And the reason why you can tell it's the front is it doesn't have split loom on it. It's just wrapped with electrical tape. And that's so it allows it to fit down in these channels better. So what you do is you feed it through this hole up underneath the switch and then run it down with this main electrical set. So there's the main harness. Then there's another part that comes off in a T right here, and that's for your brake switch. So let's feed these all all the way down till all the slack is out. Okay, now that both of these are through, you run the small one into the channel that goes for the brake. And we'll zip tie these in place in just a minute. But initially that goes here into the brake switch area. This is for the mechanical brake switch. On the other side, they say to run this up through the middle groove. And the reason why is this one's pretty full with the main chassis harness. There is plenty of room for this to fit in this trench. You may have to twist and bend the wires a bit and go up underneath the dash. All right, next is the under dash harness. But this is the harness right here. So it connects, this wide off piece is for the front, for the lights and the turn signals. If you look up underneath, I think you can kind of see it, there are holes on either side that go up underneath. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this through one of those holes to run to the front. Now when we get to the front bumper, I'll show you where that goes. But for now, I'm just going to leave it here. The main harness that comes from below, right here, plugs in. So if you look, it only goes one way. You plug in just like this. This end of the harness will plug into the switchgear that comes from the steering column. And then last is this headlight on and off switch. There's many places you can put it. What I'm going to do, and you can't see it from that camera angle, is I'm going to put it just up above the steering wheel. You have to drill a hole. They say the hole size should be 15/32, which it must be some metric conversion because that is 1/32 away from a 1/2 inch. So you'll drill a 1/2 inch hole and then use these nuts. On this harness, there is a gray wire, and it says connect female bullet on harness. I don't know what it does, but I was looking at the main harness, and sure enough, there is a female bullet that's gray. So guess what? We're going to plug that in. I put a piece of green duct tape here so you can see where I'm drilling the hole. With black on black, with the light shining, it's kind of hard to see. The harness, like I said, comes with this switch. The way this works is the knob unscrews. You drill a 15/32 hole in this piece here, and then you feed it through the back. I'm going to put the hole, I think it'll look good, right about here. There is a nice clean hole. So there's two nuts on here. One sets the depth and the other holds it in place. So I'm going to remove the outermost, leave the innermost in position, feed this up through the hole. There you go. Put this on. Now I'm not going to do the final positioning or tightening of this until I get the knob figured out where I want it. There should be plenty of room to fit a pair of pliers in there to do the final position. That looks about right. Next, we're going to install the switch mechanism or the lever mechanism. This is just held on with a hose clamp with a rubber around it, so it doesn't move or scratch. Since we have the stock steering wheel on, there is a part that moves with the steering wheel, so we're going to mount it just below that. Eventually, we do want to put a different steering wheel on this, but for now, this is the stock. If we find out later that this is not a good place, we can always move it. So you have to completely remove this hose clamp, and then you put it around, tighten it up. Okay, now that that's tight, we make sure it's good and tight, make sure it doesn't interfere with the steering wheel. Then it comes with this sleeve that covers the wiring. It's laid out where it snaps over the column, and there's a channel for the wire to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to route this right on the side of this to run all the way down. So you just put this over. It's a little stiff, especially today because it's a little cool today, but yeah, put that on. And this covers the wiring so it doesn't get damaged or move out of place over time. And there you have it. All right, before we connect in the harness from the steering, which is right here, we're going to put the rest of the under dash harness together. There is a relay, and they say in the instruction, connect relay, the relay with the relay harness. That's all they give. They don't give any pinouts, any colors. They do give a picture, but it's not very clear. So with a little bit of investigation, this relay has narrow pins and wide pins. The connector has narrow pins and wide pins. So the picture, I'm going to go ahead and insert it here so you can kind of see what they show you. But looking at it closely, it looks like at the top there's an orange and a blue or some dark color. And looking at the 4 wires that come out, there's a blue that's narrow and an orange that's narrow. So probably the power, I'm guessing, that activates the relay. Then the other 2, looking at the diagram, it looks like one green one with a white trace and then a blue, a solid blue. So that's the way I've connected it. Now I'm going to connect in the harness from the steering. What you'll notice is there's also this other piece. And this, I believe, is a turn signal relay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck this all up onto this shelf here behind the dash. For the most part, this is all going to get connected and tucked up in behind the dash. So with that, that's the last of the stuff that goes up under the dash, because I'm going to put the dash in next. All right, there's 3 screws that hold this in. Next is the brake light. It's a little confusing. There's a time delay in here along with a mechanical switch. So let's go over the parts. To start with, this is the mechanical switch. Move that wire out of the way. Zoomed in so you could see it a little bit better. This is the mechanical switch, and this has a spring on it. So it has a pull. When you pull, it turns on the light. The way this connects and the way this works is down here in the bottom of this hole, we're going to drill 2 holes and mount this bracket. Where do you mount the holes, you ask? That's pretty straightforward. So this spring will hook here. And the way it will hook is we're going to loosen up this front jam nut. And we're going to put this bracket in there. And what this bracket does is goes between the adjuster and the jam nut. And then we'll put the hook from that spring on there. So that way we know when it pulls either way that it locks it. So we're going to start with the switch in the middle, and that way we can adjust it either way if it's too sensitive or not sensitive enough. Next is a circuit breaker and a time delay. So the next most simple connection is a circuit breaker. So that's what this is. If this sees an overload condition, it sets a circuit breaker, and then you reset it by pressing this button. So that connects to the connector on the brake switch. So there's a connector on the brake switch. There you go. I've already connected it so that I could follow their wiring diagram. I'll insert the wiring diagram in this so you can see what they see or what they say. It's a little confusing at first. I had to lay everything out and go through it. To start with, I connected the butt connector on the other end of this connector to this fuse. So this is the hot side of the switch. So again, if there's a short or something goes haywire, this will reset, and then you can reset it. I'm going to set it in such a place that I can reset it without having to pull the panel off, but you can place it wherever you want. There's no double-sided sticky tape, so it pretty much just lays in here. All right, so that's one side of it. The other side of the switch connects to the time delay, and this is where things get a little confusing. There's 3 wires that come in from the main harness. One, the main power, right? That's the red wire. The other is a ground, and that connects to, if you can see it there, a 3 minus. So minus, I'm assuming, means negative. Then there is this orange wire that comes in, and that connects to the 1 on this time delay circuit. And then the ground on the negative side of the brake switch connects over here to the 2+. So all of these go together per the wiring diagram. Like I said, I've inserted it. You can see what I mean. It's a little confusing at first, but once you get it, it's not so bad. Over on the accelerator side, there's a fair amount of room. So what I'm going to do is this time delay circuit has some double-sided tape on it. I've cleaned a spot there on the plastic. Then I'm going to go ahead and stick it in place. This will just press down into this gap, just like that. So it's not going to go anywhere. And then this time delay circuit will be placed right there. What that does is it gets the majority of this wiring away from the moving parts here. I'm going to run the wire underneath, and we'll go ahead and get it mounted. All right, so here we are. This is the finished product. So if you look right there, what I've done is I've put 2 screws here and here down through the plastic, brought it up. It goes to that hook right there. Now, right now I've got it loose. It's not adjusted to turn on correctly. One thing I do want to point out, so this front adjuster, since this is an adjuster, these have opposite threads. So on this side, this is the reverse thread. So when you are trying to loosen it, it's righty-loosey, lefty-tighty. Now over here, you'll see the reset switch. So there's the reset switch. I kind of wedged it between these 2 plastic parts. If it does get tripped, I can reach up underneath the cart, see here, and press it without having to take the floor mat out. Over here is the time delay switch. I cleaned a spot on the plastic and stuck it right up there. The wire runs here in this channel with the accelerator wire. There's a little bit of extra, so I just looped it around and brought it up. So that is the brake switch all in place. Next is to put the trim piece that goes there next. All right, as you can see, before I put all the panels back in, I've got the wires routed down in these channels. And it's very important to have it down in the channels because the floor mat's going to go over the top of this, and we don't want them to get chafed. So next is putting the main panel in here. Now, since I did a lithium conversion, I don't have the standard connector down here. What I have is the 110 volt for plugging in the lithium. So if you're using still the lead acid batteries and have the original connector down here, by now you've removed the trim piece to allow this to come out. So you'll have to make sure you align it up and put the trim piece back on. But for me, all I have to do is feed this wire back through the hole. Once it's in place, now we lift up the plastic main body part and wedge this underneath. All right, now that that is in place, let's go ahead and put in the 2 T35s that go up top. And then the 3 T40s that hold the bottom in. Last of all, let's put this trim piece back in. So I've routed the wires in this channel. I've adjusted the switch. So when there's a little bit of movement, it will turn on the switch. Next, we'll put this trim piece back in place. And the push pin holds it all together. All right, here we are underneath the seat in the battery area. Since I don't have lead acid batteries and I have the lithium system I talked about before, I changed where the wire comes out of the loom. So normally it comes out further in the back, and then you connect it to the lead acid batteries. In my case, I had it come out of the loom a little bit further forward. This is the ground, the black wire, and the blue is the powered wire to turn on the lights. So I've moved the fuse from the inline fuse to here in my fuse panel. I'm going to trim these to the right length, put ring connectors on them, connect the ground, and then connect the positive. All right, so I've routed the ground to the top, positive to the side. This is that 15 amp fuse that came with it. So that's all wired in. Now we just put the cover back on. All right, so for some fun, I bought a new floor mat. That old one was getting pretty rough and pretty tattered. So this new one is a deco mat. It's in just like that. It goes into the original hole locations, so it tucks under the trim. All right, there it is in. 4 T40 screws. Hold it the rest of the way. There. Once it gets warm, it'll flatten out. All right, next is removal of the bumper. There's a bolt that runs all the way through the frame that holds the bumper in place. Kind of overkill if you ask me, but it holds it in place pretty well. The nut is 13 millimeter. What's funny is the head of the bolt, though, is 10. I don't know why they set it up that way. It's kind of awkward to do, but anyway, there's that. And then there's two of these, one on either side. I'd already gotten the other side off and loosened this one, so it's pretty easy. So you remove that, take the bolt out, and then the bumper just pulls right out. All right, with this off, as you can see, it exposes the steering gear. If you remember when I was inside doing the main harness, I fed the light switch back through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach up in here and pull it down. Let me reposition the camera so you can see it a little bit better. All right, so there's the harness that I fed through that hole. I don't want it to interfere with the shock or the suspension. But if you look up here, up at the very top, there's a gap. So I'm going to feed it through up over the top and bring it down the middle. So this comes down and connects with the headlight. Before we install the headlight, though, the next thing we need to do is install the horn. So here we are at the top of the suspension. We're going to install the horn next. They say to use this bolt right there. So the horn has a bracket on the back. It's shipped loose. It's 10 millimeter, so you're going to need to tighten it once you figure out the orientation. There's two spade connectors that come off of the harness that's connected to the light. So what we're going to do is we're going to orient it with those spade connectors down and the horn up here. I may have to bend the bracket a little bit to get it so it doesn't ground out. To start out with, we will tighten this nut on the back. There we have it. Next, that fastener. So there we have it. There's the horn. I bent the bracket out a little bit because we don't want the horn to ground out. Again, here's the harness for the lights. Let's go ahead and install the lights. Here's the light kit. So this is the front light. Here's the back side of it with the harness and the two mounting brackets. What you want to do is you want to make sure these go on the outside of the frame. On the front, you get a little bit of a bumper, and then you get your main headlight and individual turn signals with this kit. There's enough room behind it to get my hands in to do the connections. I can't do it now. It's not quite long enough to reach everything. So I'm going to go ahead and install the bumper, and then I will connect the electrical connection. Next is installing the taillights. So first we have to drill a hole. They say 1 1/8. I've got a 1 1/4 hole saw. That should be fine. The reason for the hole is to run the electrical connector through. So to start with, it's 2 1/4 to the left of the opening. So 2 1/4, 2 1/4, about there. And then up 1 1/2. Gives us a hole right there. So that's where we're going to drill a hole. And there's our hole. Do this on both sides. All right, so here's the hole. Next, we're going to fish through to the battery compartment to pull the wire harness through to the back. I have this stiff plastic air hose or air line that from another project that works really well to fish through. It has a little bit of an arc to it, which is actually what we kind of need to fish through to the main harness. So I'm going to feed this through. You can use a metal fishing tape or other things to fish through here, but this is what I have, so this is what we're going to use. So here's that air hose that I ran through. I fished it up through this hole here. Here's the wire harness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this to it and pull it all the way through. Here's the wire fished all the way through. Obviously, it's not going to stay out like this. I have to have it exposed so I can do the connection. It only goes in one way, so fits like that. And then you squeeze it together. You make sure these side pieces are locked in place. If you don't, there's a chance that over time, this could move and release. We certainly don't want that, and I'll show you why. Because the next step is to stick this to the body via this double-sided adhesive, and then there's 2 screws that hold it even more. So the reason for the size of the hole is it allows your connector to go in there. And that will fit just like that. Now I've already done test fitting to make sure this will work. One thing to point out, and you can see it from there, the lower screw screws into the lower portion and sticks to the lower portion, and then the other screw attaches to the body tub. So if we ever need to remove this body tub, it's going to be a little bit of work. But once you move it around a little bit, you can tell exactly where it's supposed to fit. It overhangs a little bit on the inside, but it sits flush with the lower bumper portion. So let's go ahead and remove the double-sided adhesive and put the screws in. Next, we repeat on the other side. Here we go. Everything's done. Lighting test. So first of all, you should be able to see a reflection behind me when I step on the brakes. So there we go, the brake lights work. Next, we'll do the headlights. Headlights. Turn signal to the right. Turn signal to the left. Four-way flashers. Cancel the flashers. And last of all, the horn. All right, that's it for today. We've installed the entire lighting system Instamatic. So we wired it into 12 volts, but you can wire it directly to 36 or 48 volts. Thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. I always need more subscribers. And as always, thanks for watching Go Far with Brett.